Today, I decided to talk to you now not as a Minister of Education and Sports, but as a mother, maybe as a grandmother. I wanted to talk to you about where we're coming from. I wanted to remind you of where we have come from as a people and a nation. There was a time when Uganda was suffering from HIV and AIDS, and we were having people dying in all villages of the country. And we had to put up a campaign to talk to families. We had to find a way to reach our people and to tell them that there is no other way except changing their behavior, changing the way they live, and that then they could defeat HIV and AIDS. Then, by God's grace, there was a drug that was discovered that was supposed to stop a child being born with HIV and AIDS because of the mother's blood. So we thanked God so much, and we started now another campaign to try and make sure that the mothers understand that the children they are bringing to the world depend on them to come out into the world free of HIV and AIDS. But at some stage we realized that it would take two parents, not just the mother. So we had to include the fathers in our campaign. We campaigned so that the children can now be born without HIV and AIDS. And our whole strategy was that if the adults who have HIV and AIDS are taking drugs and they bring children into the world free of HIV and AIDS, then we believed we may come to a place where Uganda would see that generation free of HIV and AIDS. Because there was this advert on TV that used to talk of a generation free of HIV and AIDS. So we thought that now that we have drugs for adults and we have hope for a child to be born into the world without it, we thought now we would see a generation without HIV and AIDS. And by God's grace, that worked a lot. There were many children being born without HIV and AIDS. But now we get COVID-19. COVID-19 comes up, and one of the first things the government did was to close all educational institutions in the country. That was in the hope that when these children are all out of these institutions, that they are secure, that they are free of this disease, and they are going home, and they will be free of the disease, and we could breathe a deep breath that they have gone out without catching this COVID-19. But as the president says many times, tuba tukyali awo, then we hear now a whole new problem coming from our community, a new outcry now that the children who are home, that they are not secure, that they are being sexually abused, that they are being forced in marriages, that they've been abandoned by their families, that the children are actually at risk in their homes. So really, for me, I wondered now, what else does one do? It has not been possible for us to open the schools, but it looked like what was important now was to open the schools so that children can just be brought back into schools to provide the security for them from their own homes. So that's when I resolved that now maybe we need to start a new campaign. Even before we open schools, even before we talk about the education, now we have to talk about the security of our children away from home. How can that really be? When we are thanking God that more families now have two parents, children are not orphaned anymore, but that's the time when we are hearing that children are at risk. They are being forced to get married, they are being abused by relatives in their own homes. And so people are saying, now you must open schools, because the numbers are coming up every day of children who are being abused at home. That's what I'm here to talk about today. But when I heard all this, I thought that maybe where we have been wrong is to focus on talking to the parents. Because during the HIV and AIDS time, we used to focus on the children themselves, on the youth, because we knew that when the push comes to shove, one must take care of their own lives. So today, I decided I will talk to the children themselves. I'm talking to you now, children who are watching me. Youth, you know that the bars were closed. The government has not opened the bars yet. But I'm told that the youth actually make bars wherever they are. They buy alcohol, they bring them into their homes, or I don't know, their own places of residence, and then they switch off the lights, and then they do all sorts of things in the dark, and that's where some of them get pregnant. That's where all sorts of things go on. Some of them are on drugs. Some of them are doing all sorts of things. Now, you young people, your lives are yours. You must decide to really take care of your lives. You must have some dream that you care to see in your future that can force you to stop what you're doing and try to do what is right. You must have a conscience. Everybody has a conscience that God has put in each human being, where God still speaks within you and tells you that this is right or this is wrong. And I'm appealing to you now that you choose to do what is right for your own sake, so that your life is saved. So, as a Ministry of Education, when the schools were closed, we struggled to find a way to reach you at home to ensure that learning can continue. And that program may not have been perfect, we must accept, but if we had the partnership of the parents, and the teachers in the villages, that learning could continue. And even now we are struggling to ensure that we send more home study materials. We ensure that more radios are accessible to you through the government program, which we are struggling to do. And those who are on TV can still learn from the television sets. But you must care enough yourselves to try to do some learning while you're at school instead of looking for a way to really put your life at risk. This was the purpose for my address to you today, to the children now, to the youth of Uganda. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you when the schools will open. We are all still hoping and waiting. But in the meantime, I thought I needed to talk to you about the security and safety of your lives. So please listen to me. And if you really are in trouble at home because of a relative at home who should be taking care of you, learn to say no. And say no loudly so that your mother or your father or somebody near you who cares about you can help you. If nobody is willing to help you in that home, you can run to your aunt, to your grandmother, to somebody. There must be somebody who cares. Our families are still large. We still have extended families. Surely there must be somebody who can help you. And when you fail to get anybody altogether, that's when you should ring a number, look for a phone, call on a number that's called the Child Help line. The number is 116. And somebody will answer that number. But please don't do nothing. Don't allow your life to be destroyed at this time. There is so much ahead of you, and you must struggle to see that dream that you have in your heart. I thank you for listening to me, and I pray the blessings of God to be with you. Thank you.